Okay, welcome everybody. We are getting going with our class today, which is called Writing a Horror Show. So we're looking at writing pilots in the horror genre, meaning that not like you don't have to plan out the entire show at the early stages here, but we're at least thinking of what would like a strong premise for a horror show be, and how can our pilots start to like hint towards that premise and set promises for the way that we will execute on that premise in such a way that you don't have to write every episode in order to clarify how the show would work and how is this more than just a movie. So those are some of our key topics for today. Basically, we're talking all about writing horror on TV. Let's get going. And this is, of course, one of my the credits that I have. I wrote on Creepshow for the Shudder network, the anthology back in 2019. So we are on Script Camp today, which, if you don't know, this is one of our many different servers that help you take your concept from idea to fruition. We have lots of different topics. Script Camp is all about screenwriting, movies, and TV shows. It's our biggest server. It's our home base for the moment. We also have other servers like WordCamp, which is focused on novel writing with classes every Saturday from 12 to 2. We've got lots of free classes, table reads, script swaps, and writers groups, but to get the most out of our servers, you should join up and become a member. Supporting members get access to the full boot camps, which are like a series of 6 to 8 classes that take you all the way from beginning to end of an entire script. You also get access to Writers Labs, which are where you can bring your questions and topics every week. Work in progress up to 5 pages to get feedback on it. We're part of Skill Camp, which is a nonprofit that offers free and low-cost classes to help learn new skills to reach your life goals. Just a little about me. I'm a primarily feature writer, but like I mentioned, did write on Creepshow for the Shudder network, so have done some pro horror work on TV before, and have done a fair amount of non-credited rewrites and polishes on horror scripts. I do the feature boot camps and also the TV and the novel classes on Saturdays. But we have many other instructors and event hosts here. Besides myself in our community, we have plenty of genre groups, including Genre Cinema Club, which meets on Tuesdays. We have Sci-Fi Group, which meets on Thursdays. Fantasy Group, Mystery and Crime. We've got all kinds of different niches that you can check out. Even if you don't sign up for membership, you can just come join one of our many, many, many free events that happen all week. You can join up for membership if you want to take more than just these free classes, scriptcamp.net/classes to get a specific class, or you can become that supporting member for as low as just $19 a month if you buy yearly at scriptcamp.net/membership. Actually, I think it's just the main page will take you there now. Okay, so we are in this is not a stage channel, it's a voice channel, but we'll ask that you please keep your mics muted on Discord. And if you're watching on one of our other streaming sites that we're streaming on, we're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Kick, and was there more? Gosh, YouTube, yep, there's a bunch of stuff that we're streaming on right now. We're glad to have you, but we would suggest that you come join us on Discord so that it's easier to interact, and you can participate live in our voice chats and all these things. And it's also, we can still see your comments, but sometimes it just takes a couple minutes, but you're welcome to participate from YouTube or Twitch or something like that too, if you are watching from there. Okay, so today I'm not going to read this whole quote, but we're going to get into horror TV shows, which, it feels like it's sort of a younger genre, maybe the youngest TV genre, like comparing them to the rest. The idea that horror could even be a TV show, or TV shows could be like firmly in the horror genre, to me is like in the past 25 years-ish, maybe 30 years total. Like we've kind of come around to this idea. Obviously, we did have Tales from the Crypt in the early 90s, which maybe was like one of the big first pushes into this direction. But there's some reasons that TV just doesn't seem like a great fit for horror. For instance, like how can we maintain the tension if we have to stretch out the story so long? Well, obviously the main character doesn't die, right? If there's a whole show, we know that we have to keep going from episode to episode, so how could we possibly kill... You can't kill the main character, so is there that much danger? You have these kind of just basic questions and problems like this, which seem sort of tied to the medium itself. But there's lots of ways to make it work, and there's lots of examples that we've seen, especially in the past, 10 years. I think we kind of blew the floodgates open to this with Walking Dead was like probably the first massive breakout hit horror show. There have been, of course, others, and like even earlier shows like Twin Peaks and things like this, which had horror elements to them. It was like a surrealist mystery, I guess you would say, but it had like spooky, creepy themes and spooky things happening. Anthologies are a little bit older, and I think we may have seen anthologies on TV as late as or as early as the 80s, maybe late 70s or early 80s. That kind of almost shares a lot of DNA with the TV movie of the week kind of thing. But in any case, we also, there's just like a great space for anthology in horror, because every time you reset the premise, like we have a new cast of characters, new setting, new location, new everything, and it just makes a nice way. It's basically just a series of short, unconnected horror stories. Although we will look at today how to actually make them feel like they are connected and like it is the same show and it's not just a series of movies. So let's hear from you guys. What horror shows do you like? What are some of your favorites? What are some scenes that really creeped you out? What kind of thing do you want to write, maybe? What do you want to share? Tell us about some horror shows that you're into.
Black Mirror.
Yeah, so Black Mirror, speculative sci-fi show, but lots of horror-ish episodes, right? What do you like about it? What makes it work?
Oh, man. Too much. Trying to pick a specific horror-themed episode, maybe the McAllister one. It blends different genres. There's, I don't know, a cast of interesting characters. There's, things that we can relate to, like, a sadistic boss, but we take that to, 11 in this particular episode. I don't know, just lots to enjoy. There's also a really good interactive story called Bandersnatch I enjoy a lot.
Mm-hmm. Playtest was probably like it was basically a straight up horror movie as well. If we're looking at
straight up horror,
yeah. If we're, because that's almost like the point of that episode more than the others. But there's lots of them that feature existentially horrifying ideas, like having your brain trapped in a computer for all eternity, or like imagine you're a soldier and you're being brainwashed into killing innocent civilians on the other side, or a lot of like horrific ideas, I guess I would say, that can be explored in really cool new ways using that lens of technology.
Yeah, or just We Live in a Society. That's my favorite episode is episode 2, 15 Million Merits.
Right.
I really love that episode, but it just boils down to We Live in a Society.
Right, that is true. Maybe not the scariest episode, but sort of has those existentially horrifying themes about like it's reflecting the world we already live in back at us, but in a speculative, fantastical way.
Like a dark mirror.
You could say. Thank you for that.
Okay, somebody else.
Yeah, anyone else? Let's hear more. What are some horror shows you guys like and why? I see some comments in the chat. I'll read a couple of these out unless somebody wants to speak up.
I can go.
Go ahead.
Love, Death, and Robot. I forgot the episode name, but there was an episode where they find this gigantic asteroid, and inside it are like 100 different cultures, right? Civilizations, and they're like kind of like symbiotic. And so the human goes in thinking they can like control this thing, right? But it turns out that this kind of asteroid is like symbiotic, right? And if you harm it, it will create antibodies, and its version of antibodies is taking these humans, mating them, and creating the perfect weapon. And so humans think they can control it, but it actually they triggered a response to the beginning of the end.
Right. Yeah, that's a really common theme in sci-fi horror is humans thought they could control or exploit this thing. But in fact, the dinosaurs don't like being kept in the zoo. So, like, obviously, we often see sort of fun visual consequences to these, human hubris, these acts of hubris. Also my favorites... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I guess the main thing that was horrifying about it is because we saw these like innocent little guys, like these aliens, right? They're like dumb and stupid and they hit the wall and like they're just really dumb looking, right? But it turns out that these were actually like type 3 civilizations that messed with the asteroid. It's like horrific. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like they got lobotomized.
Exactly. You learn the full context and the preceding story becomes scarier as a result of knowing that information. My favorite scary episode of Love, Death, and Robots is called Bad Traveling. The one directed by David Fincher from season 3, I think. And this is the one that is kind of a gothic fantasy horror story about some sailors on a ship that gets hijacked essentially by a giant crab, and that's where we start. I won't spoil much else, but it doesn't go where you think it will. The crab is there to stay. The crab has a list of demands, and the humans have to figure out how to placate the crab's demands. I won't tell you more. Go watch it. It's called Bad Traveling. Anybody else? Tell us favorite horror shows, horror moments.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
So I'm really into From right now. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's like a mystery box kind of show. It's a little bit like Lost meets like Silent Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so what I really like about it is that every character drives the plot, right? They all have a purpose. They all have, a role, and that's kind of like part of the whole thing. I won't say too much, but are you familiar with ARGs, like augmented reality games?
Yeah, for sure. I think Nacho, our co-host, even works on making those or similar things to those as part of his other job.
Yeah. So the show isn't that, but it kind of reminds me of that, because part of the joy of the show is that there's so much going on and there are so many theories flying around, and part of the joy is the social interaction of trying to figure out what the hell is going on here, going online and seeing different theories and everybody putting the pieces together, because there are things I would have never noticed if I wasn't interacting with others and they had their hawk eyes on, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah.
The water cooler effect, they used to call that, where like the next day you have to go theorize, what did that mean with all your friends by the water cooler?
Yes, exactly.
This was a little easier in a time where everything was airing. Everyone was watching shows that were airing all, like on network TV. Because in a post-streaming world, we don't really have water cooler moments in the same way exactly. Because anyone can watch it at any time, and often they drop all the episodes at once. So it's like, oh, I just saw this awesome thing, and everyone's like, well, I watched it 6 months ago when it first came out. So we don't share. It's harder to share that kind of like communal experience of watching shows that used to be really common. Some networks still do try to create that, but yeah, I think that is like a very, very sort of Twin Peaks and Lost were the shows that built up that kind of mystery box horror world that's like hundreds of little mysteries, because every mystery you solve leads to 5 more, and so there's so many fan theories floating around, and like so many it's fun to just imagine all the possibilities of like essentially what is going on here.
Yeah, 100%.
Severance is not scary, really. It's a little existentially scary, but has a similar kind of like mystery box vibe to it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, I'll check it out. I have not seen that one.
It's amazing. Season 2 comes out in January, so keep your eye out. Okay, anyone else?
What was the show called? What was the show that we were just talking about? What was the name of it?
We just mentioned a couple. One was From, which I think is on
NBC. From is the Silent Hill meets Lost.
That's right. And I think it's either on Peacock or NBC, or I guess it's on both. Or maybe just Peacock. Okay, and I see some other suggestions. Twilight Zone. Oh yeah, I wrote the original pitch documents for the Twilight Zone VR game, so very familiar with Twilight Zone. Love it. And even the reboot had a couple pretty good episodes. Let's see, Penny Dreadful. Yep, that's in the gothic historical space. I love that. The Terror is also in that same kind of gothic historical space. I'm obsessed with that kind of stuff. I see in the chat Stranger Things. I didn't realize Stranger Things was horror, but it was pretty scary. I see that now. Oh yeah, the opening scene is a guy getting chased and eaten by an alien. And the opening scene is a scare sequence, which I think often is like a big clue for what is the emotional experience of this thing overall. I'm seeing in the chat The Shining or Psycho. Are there TV shows of The Shining and Psycho? I know there's Bates Motel. Is there a Shining show that I missed out on? Maybe there is. Maybe there's a Dr. Sleep linked TV show? I'm not sure. Dr. Sleep did feel a little bit like a TV show, or it could have easily been a miniseries.
I think there was a miniseries of The Shining.
Oh, you're right, there was. That was actually like on TNT in the early 2000s, wasn't it? And Stephen King actually either wrote or directed it. Maybe he even directed it. And it's closer to the book, but not quite as good as the other movie.
It's his preferred version, though.
Yeah. He has weird taste, though. Like, I'm sorry, Steve, we love you, but you have, like, He'll tweet about something being awesome that is like absolute trash, or he has like these strong opinions about even the best adaptations of his work that he's like, it was no good. No, I'm sorry, Steve. We love him. He has, everyone has weird opinions all over the place, so it's not.
He directed.
Go ahead.
The worst horror movie, in my opinion, Maximum Overdrive.
Yep. I thought so. Well, the 80s were a wild time, let's just say. Okay, thank you for everybody weighing in. Let's go into writing horror pilots. We'll look at our overview, and we will dive into the technical, crunchy stuff for today, all of our new slides and awesome new material. So we're starting with genres, and we'll look at some subgenres and like sub-subgenres of TV that are popular nowadays. Whoa, I'm hearing a weird sound. Maybe somebody's mic unmuted. We're hearing some strange sounds through it. No, it's like a horror show. The strange sounds of the microphone. So we will look at continuity. So different continuity formats. We'll do a recap on what these exactly mean, but then we'll look into specific considerations for anthology, both seasonal or episodic anthology, status quo and premise-based continuity within horror media. And then we will go into this concept of lulling the audience. Like, to what extent do we want to, in a way, trick you into thinking it's not a horror show, or like over time make you forget that you're watching something scary? And we can tie this into a couple monologues from the Scream TV pilot that I think really clarified this idea pretty well. We will look at story engines as well, and how horror specifically interacts with story engines in these different continuity formats. And then last, we'll look at picture prompts. We're going to riff some new ideas for horror shows today, or maybe you have premises for horror shows that you're working on. We should have a little time for both. We'll start with just asking who has a horror show they're working on, maybe a log line, maybe just a broader premise that you want to talk about a little bit for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And in our last part of class, we will have time to share those and get feedback or provide feedback on those today. Do we have any questions before we start? No, I thought I heard a mic unmute, and that usually means a question is happening. That's okay. Let's get into it. So, we did this question, favorite scary shows and why. But I do like this background image, which is from Marianne, which is an overlooked 2019 French horror show on Netflix that got canceled after one season after a huge, amazing cliffhanger. So, what's the deal with that? Where's our big campaign to bring it back? Save Marianne. I know it's too late at this point. It was 5 years ago. But come on. Bummer. I love that show. It's about a ghost witch. Kind of like The Conjuring, but way gorier. Okay, let's go into first this idea of what is the ghoul or threat, because the central hook in horror is almost always the threat. Think of the Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, right? Okay, Frankenstein's monster is the actual, quote, threat, unless, I guess the Doctor himself is sort of a threat too. But in any case, the hook in horror TV is still basically the threat, but there's other parts of the hook too that need to be working together. Additional key parts of the threat here are the setting. The setting is really important in TV. The ensemble aligned against the threat can be part of the hook in addition to the threat itself. And then, of course, always also the methods they use to combat that threat. So, yes, I know that's kind of diluting this idea that the central hook is the threat, but there are just a few other factors in TV that matter as well and that kind of play key roles in the story engine. And so in this case, we can see that each of these shows here does have a sort of like central, I would say, a source of threats rather than a central singular threat. And that's something that TV and movies have as a point of difference between them, as we all know, is that in TV, you can have multiple different conflicts that unfold over time. Like, we might finish one conflict and then a new conflict starts. And we go through different arcs of the show where we maybe completely defeat one threat and then a new threat rises up, perhaps as ramifications for whatever we did in combating the first one, or perhaps completely unrelated to the first one, and it's your character's job to just go from thing to thing. Think of a show like Hannibal, right? Where it's kind of killer of the week for a while, at least, and the setting, although the setting is not really emphasized as a key part of the storyline of the Thomas Harris, universe, the setting is not exactly our normal, regular America. It is like a version of America where there are maybe hundreds of serial killers active at any given time, and not only are they like stabbing people with knives and stuff, they're doing like the most over-the-top insane. It's like the serial killers are almost like supervillains in Silence of the Lambs world. And they have like not they aren't just crimes of passion or a crime of convenience or greed or things like this. They're like, oh no, this guy makes totem poles out of human corpses, and it's like every single week we have one of those. So it's like a nightmarish version of America where there's like so many obscenely over the top serial killers that it's basically a comic book world. So you can see how the setting actually plays more of a role. Obviously, that key relationship in this sort of, like, is, in this one, like, Hannibal is not the central threat of the show. He's kind of an anti-hero, and he's paired with the protagonist, whose name is Will Graham, and who's a police investigator. And the hook in this case is sort of a combination of that setting, like a version of America where there's an absolutely mind-bogglingly insane serial killer every single week, who seem to be mostly geniuses that are, like, very adept at avoiding the police and playing games with people and telling riddles and stuff like. They're like, comic book super villain serial killers. But in addition to that, our main character is a cop that has to work with a serial killer in order to catch the other ones, which is always sort of the hook of the, oh no, did I lose my stream? My screen flickered for a second. Are you guys still there? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just flickered black. That was weird. Okay, what else? So, also on the screen, we have From, which somebody mentioned. The source of the threats is sort of this weird town, which might be in another dimension or something like that. We're not really sure. It's kind of like Silent Hill, but like there are these kind of monster people that live in this town and that act as the threat that's keeping everyone centralized there. They can't leave or they'll be attacked by the monsters. And there's like dozens of other mysteries and threats going on too. There's a lot going on. I don't actually watch the show, so I couldn't really recap it for you very well. But my family likes it. And then we have Stranger Things, where the source of the threats is the Upside Down, which is this kind of dark, shadowy other dimension, and all the various cosmic monstrosities that live there. And also, another source of threats are sort of the human villains that are interested in the Upside Down in various ways, which is kind of a Clive Barker staple of like not only is there strange magic and other dimensions and weird creatures and entities and stuff like this, but the humans that preoccupy themselves in accessing or gaining power from those things are just as scary, if not scarier, than the actual cosmic threats themselves. And we have Ash vs. Evil Dead, which again has that sort of unifying element of like the Deadites are like I guess they're kind of like a hive mind of demonic possessions that are connected to spirits from the Kandarian realm, I guess is the explanation, or something like that. Don't think way too hard about it. I mean, Evil Dead its strength was never really consistency or rules, though the show does build out more rules than the movies had, which, by the way, I've seen 10 million times, and I cannot figure out the rules at all. How does someone even become a Deadite? I don't even know. How do you become unpossessed? They're so inconsistent between the movies that the show had to, like, actually put in a little more work to figuring them out, which I do like. But ultimately, it's like, kind of don't think about it too hard. Okay, so we're looking at, if we're thinking about ghouls, just to recap this from previous classes, we do often have these sort of different sources, but I guess we would add, the setting often becomes an extension of one of these things within the world of horror TV, because remember, like, a source of threats is more important than an individual threat, usually for TV, because it's like, what are you going to have 5 seasons of people getting stalked by one killer? Or like one monster? Is it going to be a creature feature where it's like an alien is killing people that are trapped in a spaceship? Can you do that for years of TV shows or of episodes? Probably not. So it would have to be more like a race of aliens, or this planet where these aliens come from, or these people are stranded on this ship that is full of all kinds of unknown horrors. Like, you kind of have to imagine that we're going to have more threats than just one, because if any one threat in the horror genre is going to be formidable enough to have it work in a movie or show, it would probably be able to wipe your whole cast, right? Unless you have additional threats besides that first one, or perhaps there are ways to make it work where you have one singular threat that can last a long time. But usually that has to be then a character that is capable of a lot of different stuff. Think of like Pennywise, for instance. It's like, and there is an It show coming out called Welcome to Derry on HBO. And Pennywise is just a very powerful sorcerer, essentially. I mean, he's like an ancient, almost like a cryptid that can shapeshift and mostly takes the form of a clown, but doesn't always. I mean, he takes many, many other forms all throughout the series. He can kind of act remotely in ways that are a little bit hard to understand, but in any case, he has the ability, he's like a source, he is a source of threats in addition to just being a singular threat. He also can influence humans in ways that are pretty effective and scary. Here's a question from Becky. What if you're planning a mini-series? If you're planning a mini-series, then you have to approach the story engine completely differently, and I would look at it more like a movie, and most of these rules will not apply. The only things that will apply are going to be, like, you're going to want to make sure that your show feels like it has enough fuel to last the number of episodes that you're planning for. But if you're not writing a show that's going to last for years, then no, the setting is not as key of an element, and it's going to be more about that singular threat, probably. Or a singular mystery, or a singular, case, or something like that. Luke mentions there's a monster in the Evil Dead show that has a digital TV artifact around it that looks cool. Yeah, that is cool. Also, Channel Zero, if I remember correctly, played with that. Similar effects in some episodes. Channel Zero Season 2 being one of the best anthological seasons of horror TV ever made, in my opinion. Channel 2 called No End House. You can watch it on Shudder. Highly recommend. Shudder is not currently paying me. They have in the past, but they are not right now. But I will recommend Shudder if you like this kind of stuff. So, what are our sources? Well, we have bad people, human evil, we could say. We have emotional pain, which is essentially coming from your characters themselves, and the threats they may be an extension of the character's emotional pain in some sense, like Pennywise we just mentioned, preys on the emotional pain of the characters and can only target them when they are I guess he's almost like summoned by emotional pain in a way, kind of like the Babadook or something like this. And then our last one might be cold and uncaring universe. Is my slideshow frozen? Yes, it is. Okay, when my screen flickered, it froze my my whole streaming setup. Nacho, what should we do? Should we restart the stream, or maybe if I stop streaming on Discord, I think it will still keep going because I'm streaming from the windowed projector on OBS, right? Let me try that. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna hit this button to stop streaming. I'm gonna try again. Share. Projector. Does that work? Nope. Okay, I'll try it one more way. I think it will work like... 1 sec. No, my OBS is totally frozen. Okay, Nacho, are you there? Maybe he's not.
Where's Nacho when you need him?
Yeah, put the signal in the sky. Okay, I think we may have to break the stream and restart it, is my assumption, just because I can't advance slides and I can't even show my webcam. Maybe my internet flickered for a second and that's what made it cut off. Is the stream still going? I think it is.
I could see the stream, but it's still on that what is the ghoul or threat slide.
Right. I guess I wonder if it's still going on the social media channels like YouTube. I think it is. Somebody, if you're watching from the streams, let us know. I think I'm going to have to reset this one if you guys give me this might just take a minute or two, just because of a technical glitch. Sorry about that. I was on a roll with my topic, I thought.
You need another stream key?
There you are. Hello. Yes. So I think when my OBS program glitched for a second, it froze me, so I can't advance slides anymore. It's not updating or displaying properly. So yeah, I'll need a new stream key. We'll have to break this one.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. Let's check the chat for questions in the meantime, as Nacho's making a new stream key. Let's see. Buffy has that in later seasons with the evil military scientists, as Megan mentions. Yeah, Buffy, a lot of people's first kind of horror-ish show that they really got into, and it has a strong comedy element too. There's like that sort of almost teen sitcom kind of vibe, to maybe just because of the tone, and the Joss Whedon dialogue really adds to that kind of comedy element. But there's real scary stuff too. And that's an important distinction when it comes to horror comedy, is that you actually have to have scary scenes if you want this to be horror comedy. If it's just, like, What We Do in the Shadows is just a comedy show. It's not a horror comedy, because it's a comedy that is in an urban fantasy setting, right? It's not actually scary. Let's see. Amanda says, the conspiracy unraveled in my show is existentially horrifying. Looking forward to talking about it today. Great. Okay, cool. Yep, we'll have time at the end for looking at premises and giving feedback. Mario tells us Yellowstone is one of his favorite scary shows. You know, that does apparently... I haven't actually watched Yellowstone, but my understanding is that it does take place in a county of the country that seems to have, like... It would be terrifying to live there because they have, like, so many murders and, like, crazy gangland killings happening, like, every single week.
Connor, I'm looking at the stream on YouTube at the moment, and it's got the slide ghouls.
Right. Oh, wait, it does?
So, yeah, on YouTube, yeah.
Oh.
But it hasn't got that on the Discord one.
Right. Okay. So, for those watching on our social media, I'm going to have to restart the stream, so meaning end this video and start a new one. Sorry about that, but just click on the new link if you want to keep following along. You should see it come up in just